Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 1 of Blue Lock Season 2. The premiere episode of the season sees us basically where we left off at the end of Season 1, which is with the situation going on in the background where the directors are actually actively considering shutting the Blue Lock project down, and Ego has to deal with the reality that his precious pet may be no more if he can't do something about it. So he's come up with the plan that the members of Blue Lock are going to form a team and that they are going to compete against an actual soccer team in a match, and if his team can win the match, then the Blue Lock project will be permitted to continue. So this season looks like it's going to be about the formation of that team, the preparation of that team, and then of course the actual match that will decide the fate of the project. It also seems like there is the possibility that if the project were to be shut down, that all of these kids would actually still lose their ability to play soccer as per the rules of the Blue Lock contract. So there is definitely a lot at stake. As for this episode directly, this is not an immediately action-focused episode. This is more of a psychological and emotional episode where we see what's going on with the different players in the aftermath of everything that happened in the second half of last season, where they have completed everything and now they're actually getting set up into different formations that are going to allow them to compete for the opportunity to be one of the players that is on this team that's going to be used for this event. With that in mind, one of the things that Ego has set up is that he has these top 6 players who he figures are going to be on the team. And then he has a 7th player who is kind of a wild card kind of deal, and that happens to be Bachara, and he's actually going to be taking part in 2 matches. The rest of the players are trying to actually compete to obtain a spot on the final team proper, and they are being broken into 3 groups with 2 players from the 6 on each of those groups, and then Bachara as a wild card as we move forward. Now, among those 6, there are 2 players that we would recognize immediately, those being Reen and Nagi. And then there are a bunch of characters that are new that we wouldn't necessarily know a lot about. This is going to be really interesting because it will present the opportunity for us to meet and experience new players. It will be able to create new challenges and problems for the players that we know and love. So that's definitely going to be a lot of fun. The first part of this episode focused on also showing us who made it as far as people that aren't necessarily in this top 6, and just as devastatingly who didn't, as we went through that tournament in the second half where people were getting pushed out as they got thrown down the ranks. And the majority of the people we expected did make it forward, even some people we wouldn't have necessarily expected, like the person who was number 300 monk guy. So that's definitely something that is very interesting. The most personally shocking thing to me, of course, is that the blonde-haired super kicker who liked to think of himself as a superhero did not make it. I'm so bad with names. He is one that I just don't have the name for, but I really liked him, so I thought that was really too bad. But I mean, part of the reality of Blue Lock is that essentially outside of one person, none of these guys are going to make it. This is an all or nothing proposition. So the fact that anyone is safe now does not mean that they're going to be safe later. Some of the highlights as far as characters who made it outside of Reen, Bachara, and Nagi, though, are of course Isagi, which is our main character. That was to be expected. I wonder how many people thought he might actually get placed or something. I didn't, because one of the big things about a major character like that, where we're following their point of view, is that the writers want to leave themselves as free as possible to be able to explore as many different situations and hypotheticals as they can. So putting him in any situation where it's going to make it easier for him would actually be at the detriment of the story. because odds are good he is going to be the person who ends up being victorious long term, but our goal as viewers is to see him struggle and earn that, because otherwise it lacks proper payoff. Other characters that we've known and potentially enjoyed throughout the series who did make it forward are the shark-toothed blonde guy who is part of Team Z, the number 300 monk who still hasn't been sent back to his temple. We've got Chiguri, which is awesome because I super like him. We have King, very glad to see that he is still around and kicking. Do we have anyone else I can think of offhand? Those are the ones that stood out to me. But it was nice to see that there were definitely some returning. Oh, we have, I think it's like Leo or Rio or whatever. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's Nagi's old friend. And it was really interesting to see how different people were contemplating which team they wanted to join, because that's one of the challenging situations that the non-6/7 players had to actually contemplate. And it seems to take Isagi a bit of time to determine where he wants to be. He ultimately decides that he wants to be on the same team as Rin because he feels that he still hasn't learned everything that there is for him to learn from Rin, and he feels like he's learned more of what he needed to learn from Nagi, which is a bummer to me because Nagi's my favorite. I love Nagi. But, I mean, what you gonna do? That's who he decided to team up with. Now, Rin has his own unique problem going on. Not only the situation with his brother, which we have seen more of and which does look intriguing. I saw the last episode of Season 1 and the first episode of Season 2 within 48 hours, so I don't know how much I'm blurring there. But that was something that did stand out to me. Anyway, Rin has this new situation where the other guy that made it into the top 6 who has been paired with him is an extremely brash, extremely pushy character who is probably going to drive him up the freaking wall. The guy is definitely not necessarily my favorite flavor of character design. We've had quite a few of this type of character. In Blue Lock, I don't hate them, but I mean, we've seen enough of these that he's going to need to do something unique and interesting in order to stand out, and we'll see whether or not he can pull that off. I will say, though, that I do like his design. I love the blonde and pink, and the fact that this dude who is rocking pink highlights has so much freaking confidence. That's fun. That's not necessarily a game changer, but it is a fun design idea. But I think it'll be interesting to see just how everything goes down as we move forward. It's always nice to see where different characters' heads are at, because I mean, with purple-haired guy, as I said, Leo, I'm not sure quite how that's pronounced, but he is actually deciding to go on the same team as Nagi, and that's going to be interesting because one of the things I thought was really interesting in the second half of Blue Lock was seeing this man lose his mind while brushing his teeth, or supposedly brushing his teeth, and going like, I'll forgive Nagi. I won't forgive Nagi. Nagi and I will play together again. I don't ever want to see Nagi again. And it was just the wildest thing several episodes back in Season 1, seeing him break like that. So seeing how they will actually interact on a actual cooperative team again will definitely have some tensions and some ideas and stuff moving forward, and I'm really looking forward to that, even though they're not going to be on the same team with Isagi and Rin and everything like that. It's still going to be fascinating to see what goes down. The last thing I want to touch on briefly is that I thought that the ending thing that they did was really cute, where the different people who were in the top 6 were trying to decide who was going to room with who. I found that really funny. I always love seeing Nagi just sort of goofing off and playing video games while everyone else is getting so worked up over everything, because Nagi is just like, this shit's so simple, I ain't gonna worry about it. I'll worry about the field when I'm on the field, because he's just that good. And I mean, That's not necessarily a great attitude in a real world environment, but as for creating a quick and accessible character archetype, I think it does a really fantastic job. And watching throughout the season, and ideally throughout this next season, as we see his evolution continue in personality, as we see him go from being somebody who was completely indifferent to the whole idea initially and who kind of came alive, that's going to be really fun. To be fair, I haven't seen the movie, so I do not know quite what went on with him in that regard, so I'm definitely missing some pieces. But I don't necessarily think that watching movies for anime necessarily should be something that makes us heavily weigh in on what's going on in the actual show, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the first episode, but I'd love to know what you guys are thinking, so drop a comment below and let me know, and I'll talk to you in the next video. See you later. Bye!